All right, hump day. Welcome to Frontline, 6 o'clock here on the East Coast. We begin some breaking news from Central Command. American forces began self-defense strikes in Iran at President Trump's direction. CENTCOM calling the strikes a response to unwarranted and continued aggression. We're going to be following this throughout the show. Plus, Microsoft founder and lab meat grown connoisseur Bill Gates on Capitol Hill today with the House Oversight Committee on his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. Gates telling the committee that, I never witnessed or had any indication that Epstein was engaged in any criminal conduct. Can't wait to see his testimony when it drops. No further answers about the potential involvement on genetically engineered ticks, though. And Karen Bass, clean off last week's primary win, now being sued by her own brother. Kenneth Bass suing Los Angeles after the Palisades fire destroyed his home in January 2025, saying he and his wife were injured due to smoke inhalation, suffered distress and anguish, not having a place to live, too. That's the thing. Is her campaign slogan just going to be like, hey, I burnt the city down and all I got was a lawsuit from my brother? I cannot wait to follow this story. But first, the suicidal empathy of the people who import third world folks almost got someone's head chopped off in Northern Ireland in the street. Let's do this. Put that in your pipe and smoke it, libs. Trump just signed $70 billion in new funding for ICE, and then he called them out.
What we're signing today has been amazing, but they tried to extort us. And eventually, and they were losing tremendous support because they're extorting on law and order. And they can't win on law and order. People want law and order. They don't want crime.
You libs tried to block it, you tried to defund it, you tried to abolish it, and now, as of this morning, not only has it been funded through the end of Trump's presidency, but he got more money than he was originally asking for. You failed, libs. But it's okay. ICE will still protect you through your irrational hatred and stupidity. Otherwise, you end up with what's happening in Northern Ireland, where today the fires are still burning after riots over an African migrant who tried to behead a citizen in Belfast, Northern Ireland, the night before last. Europe is finally waking up to what Trump has been saying pretty much since day one in 2015.
Sending people that have lots of problems, and they're bringing those problems with us. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists, and some, I assume, are good people. But I speak to border guards, and they tell us what we're getting.
Yeah, that was like 10 years ago, still true, 11 years ago. But it ain't real until you see it. But now they see it, and people are literally burning down their establishment over it. Graphic, but folks, I want you to watch this. You need to see this and internalize it. This is the reality of far left, big government, big globalist policies. You get native citizens being stabbed, then arrested while they're bleeding out, who die. You get some African migrant who's literally there straddling a guy in the street to cut someone's head off. This is why Trump is so aggressive with ICE funding, because he is protecting us from that, even when you libs don't understand it. Because if Hakeem and friends got what they wanted, those who are doing these unfettered migration things that are allowing third world countries to just waltz into here, this is what you're going to get. Maybe next time, God forbid, it's your son or daughter getting a blade sunk into their neck. But what's it going to take to make these people who are trying to allow this stop? Because British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, this guy's a total L, by the way, apparently still doesn't get it from his ivory tower.
Let me be clear, Mr. Speaker. The acts of violence and arson that followed are totally unjustified. We are united in calling for calm and determined to restore order, support the police and all those on the front line, and ensure that justice is done.
Ensure that justice is done. No, you're not united in restoring order, because you're only applying that to your own citizens, not the people. Like, how about you start shipping these people the hell out of your country, Keir? This is the problem. There has been no real reckoning for Western leaders for implementing policies that destroy their culture and country and people's livelihoods. But Good order and discipline is only maintained so long as people have more to lose than gain from burning stuff down. You get any more of this migrant crime, you're going to see a rebellion, a revolution, and leaders are going to be pulled from their homes and offices and tried in the public square. You watch. People are so pissed off about this. This was the reality for leaders who behaved this way as recently as 100 years ago, which in the history of mankind is pretty recent. And if Democrats get any control of our government here in America, this is what's coming. This kind of mass migration, because the people here in this country with significant influence in razor-thin election margins that could take back power in any given election cycle still don't think this is a problem. They are also willing to import the third world. Just tons of third world people destroying communities without any reasoning for allowing it.
Senator Antonio, thank you for being here. Has Somali immigration been good for Ohio?
You know, that's really outside of my purview of
You're a state senator. Would you like to see more immigration from Somalia?
As far as I'm processing your question.
She went on to accuse him basically of being racist. In the face of facts and evidence, that woman could not say on national TV in front of Congress why she continued to support unfettered third world migration. This is why I worry for us here at home and I highlight stuff happening in Europe. This is why someone attempting to behead someone in another country is important, because at the drop of a hat or at the drop of, I don't know, a midnight mail-in ballot dump, people like that woman I just showed you, could be in charge, or against all the evidence will attack you for not wanting savages imported into your state or town or whatever. There is a reason we have been to space and other countries have not. There is a dramatic difference in cultures. It's not racism, it's just scientific facts, so shut up. Different priorities. A huge swath of the people in European countries have been imported that they believe in Sharia law. In some cases, inbreeding. Far different political systems. Middle Eastern and African nations are largely corrupt dictatorships that don't honor Western values and never will. Hell, the DHS pays for classes for some of the people coming from these countries to teaches them how to shower daily and not poop in public.
Shower or take a bath using soap regularly. Wash and groom hair regularly. Wash hands when they are dirty, and it is never acceptable to urinate in public.
If I have to teach you not to piss on the sidewalk, I don't want you in my country. And if you don't believe me, in the last 50 years, Western nations have pumped well over $2 trillion into aid into Africa. You know what it's done? Zero measurable difference. It's probably actually worse off. Billions into AIDS research and treatment and education. What's it gotten? Worse? We're dealing with countries with the average IQ, places like Somalia, under 70, I think 67. By the way, in America, the threshold for mentally retarded is 70. We can't stop the spread of Ebola because in their cultures, they kiss the dead bodies, which no matter how many times we tell them that this is how the disease spreads, they do it anyway. And when we try to segregate the body, here, you get this. They burn down the quarantine tents in protest so they can go kiss the body. And libs want to import these people to America? No thanks. Again, none of this is racist. It's just simply the desire to have our culture survive. We're watching this fall apart all over Europe. This dude gets his head nearly chopped up, being stabbed in the face, and people still don't realize this is real. Imagine being such an ignorant ideologue. Immigrants from half the countries coming to Europe, by the way, ruled by Sharia law. Here, look at this list. These are the countries that accept or govern in some factor by Sharia law. A lot of those countries are surging immigrants to Europe. And here, by the way, they aren't shy about this.
Okay, Mega, it's time that you learn Sharia law. Now that we Muslims are slowly taking over your country, starting with New York, soon, inshallah. And then not only are we taking over your country, we're bringing in communism. So you better get used to the idea of giving up your money and share it with the poor.
Interesting hypothesis, pal. Care to test that theory? It's the HR-friendly way of saying FAFO. It's not going to be a problem. You don't think that's going to cross our culture problems at all? I mean, Sharia law allows, well, here's some, polygamy. Man is permitted to marry up to 4 wives in some scenarios simultaneously. Gender segregation, weird that the Party of Women's Rights seems fine with importing people who believe this. Marriage between first cousins is actually permitted and accepted. Interesting. That's in the Quran. And death by stoning for married women convicted of adultery. Public flogging or lashing for premarital sex, state-sanctioned domestic abuse, beatings and imprisonment for violating mandatory dress codes. Women's testimony is worth exactly half of as a man. Criminalization of rape victims who cannot produce 4 male witnesses. That should be great for the Believe All Women movement. Fathers have the right to contract their daughters, whether minor or adult, in marriage. And you will not find a single lib that thinks importing these people is a bad idea. Oh, Carl, this can't be real. You're exactly. Oh, it's real. I mean, let's do another one. Let's do inbreeding. The UK is dealing with this right now. It's overrunning their medical system that's free. The UK health system is getting overrun with birth defects from inbreeding. Prevalent in some of these immigration communities. In fact, Pakistanis in the UK only account for 3.4% of nationwide births and yet account for almost 40% of recessive gene disorders. That's the sciencey way of saying inbred. Keep in mind, Pakistan is a nuclear power, by the way. They have 70% blood disorders in Pakistan. Saudi Arabia, 56% muscle wasting. Afghan, 50% spine and brain defects. Sudan, 50% childhood blindness. Iraq, 45% limb deformities. Egypt, 40% inherited deafness. Just some more data for the people who are screaming that there might be racist right now. These are all the product of recessive inbreeding. Folks, I'm just saying we should be more concerned about who we're letting into our country. There is approximately, give or take here, I'm rounding 0 data to show that these third world countries make any Western nations any better whatsoever. I honestly care more about my culture than letting others conquer it in the name of some stupid virtue signaling. Host of the Alex Marlow Show, Alex Marlow, and host at GB News, and who's been covering this fight, Bev Turner. Bev, you guys got your hands full.
Oh, we have. And honestly, I sit here breathless, Carl, listening to you talk like that, because what you've just said, we would not be allowed to say in the UK. And this is part of the problem that we've been faced with for the last 20, 30 years of mass migration. We are so heavily censored in the UK. And in fact, off the back of all the stuff that you've just described there, our government has announced today that they're going to crack down on social media content in times of difficult political or violent atmosphere. It was almost inevitable that they were going to do this because you'd seen how totalitarian his instinct is with Keir Starmer. And of course, we have a problem. And the solution, as always with this government, is to stop people talking about it. They're not going to allow the kind of footage that you've just seen, this shocking footage of Stephen Ogilvy being attacked by that knife on the ground. The solution is not to tackle migration, it's to tackle the fact that we can see it. They don't want us to see it.
But Alex, this is the problem, as I said before. Like, this is what spawns revolutions. Like, you know, Bev says, you can't say that in the UK. Well, I can say it here because I exercise my First Amendment and my Second Amendment, and I'd like to find somebody to try to shut me up. But you are going to have a revolution in that they are going to drag leaders from their offices.
Yeah, but they got to have a spine to do that, and the laws the way they are. Bev's completely right. We have a London bureau at Breitbart, and my reporters have to abide by different rules because I don't want them to go to jail. And you got a prime minister of that country who's more outraged about the riots than the beheadings by the migrants. Sadiq Khan, the mayor of London, he wants more migrants and fewer cops. We've seen these signs for north of a decade, the no-go zones, the no assimilation, race relations getting worse as multiculturalism got bigger. Here's the big question I keep asking, Carl. Would you send your family to Sudan or Somalia? No. Would you live there? Would you go on a vacation there? No. So why are we importing all these people from those places?
Yeah, I mean, that is actually the clearest example. Like, hey, Keir Starmer, do you vacation in Somalia? Of course not. But here's the other thing, Bev. Keir Starmer, in response to the protest over BLM that cost taxpayers in America $2.1 billion, this is what he had to say in defense of those protests. Roll it.
Like you, I was shocked and angered at the killing of George Floyd and the response of President Trump and the US authorities to the peaceful protests to people rightly demanding justice has been an affront to humanity.
Funny he brought up justice, but nothing for the migrants that are committing mass crimes.
Remember, his job was to be a human rights lawyer before he became our prime minister. He is a dyed-in-the-wool believer in a world without borders. That is becoming more and more apparent. He's not alone in that. There's a lot of globalists around the world at the moment who would love us to live in a world where everybody can go and live anywhere. And wouldn't it be great if that was the case? We can't take everybody. We're taking people from countries which have seen violence. We don't know what sort of brutalized trauma, never mind the culture that you were just displaying and articulating so brilliantly, Carl. But what about the trauma that they bring with them? When you have seen violence or executed it, it becomes a lot easier to do it in another country as well.
Yeah, I want to give you the last word here, Alex. You know, now English people are being told not to wear English badges during the World Cup because it could intimidate illegals.
Yeah, that's how they care about the illegal aliens more than they care about their own citizens. This is well known, but you also flagged something that I want to put a point on, Carl, is that the Islamists aligning with American leftists because they have a mutual hatred of this country. That is a massive threat, and trust me, they will do it. Even if they have nothing in common other than hating Trump, hating MAGA, that will be enough to empower them to build a huge coalition to try to stop all of us.
Well, good thing we own the guns. Bev, Alex, wish you the best of luck over there, by the way, Bev.
Thank you.
And back to the breaking news that we opened up with tonight. Just minutes before we went to air, the U.S. Central Command launching new attacks against multiple targets. That's pretty much all the information we have right now, other than that CENTCOM saying that the strikes were conducted at the president's request. Both President Trump and War Secretary Pete Hegseth today teasing the attacks. We're going to have more on this in just a bit. Coming up, Karmelo Anthony supporters rushing to defend the murderer after his guilty verdict and sentencing last night. I was just ignoring the fact that he did kill an innocent kid. My thoughts on that later in the show. But first, Act Blue CEO on Capitol Hill today, where we thought we might get answer on, I don't know, foreign donations funneled through their organizations to Democrats. Boy, were we wrong. We got that next.
You can join the Tunnel to Towers mission to do good by donating your car to today's veterans. Your car donation will help Gold Star families, as well as injured veterans, our first responders, and our homeless veterans. Donating your car is quick and simple. Any car is accepted, and we will pick up the car for free. Simply call 844-BRAVES.
By donating your car, you can make a real difference. You can do good.
It's 2 a.m., your fever spiked and you're miserable. Here's your options.
Urgent care, closed. ER, slammed, and you'll spend hundreds of thousands in both. Telehealth, yeah, but the pharmacies are closed.
That's the reason why we keep emergency medical kits at home.
It has doctor-prescribed medication like generic Z-Pak, amoxicillin, other antibiotics and antivirals. You can treat flu, pneumonia, strep, sinus infections, UTIs, and more.
Because if you're sick in at night, traveling or stranded, you don't want options.
You want what is inside this kit. No waiting, no pharmacy, and no copays.
Just schedule a quick telehealth call.
And that's how you feel better faster and avoid serious complications.
Every family should have this kit, and here's how to order yours.
Order online in minutes and use the promo code to save $45. Your doctor-prescribed kit ships fast to your door, packed with medications to treat over 30 conditions. So when something hits, you're ready. And a wellness company telehealth doctor is always there if you need guidance.
All right, you remember Act Blue, that Democrats' money funneling platform? Well, we've been all over this since day one. We were able to find out that in the past few years, over $200 million of political donations have been funneled through the Democrats' fundraising platform called Act Blue, from a fairly small circle of people who are almost exclusively over the age of 65, retired, very liberal, lower to middle income class, and from our research, it appears that these people, most of them don't even know these donations are being made in their name. It's not their money. Yeah, it was 2 years ago. And it really isn't their money. Think about that. the House Administration Committee on Capitol Hill, leading a hearing titled Preventing Fraudulent Donations. Seems fine. Transparency, verification, and accountability, investigating fraud allegations of ActBlue funneling money to the Democrats from even foreign donors overseas, which is not allowed. ActBlue CEO Regina Wallace-Jones, hyphenated names, you're right there, who has reportedly been getting paid almost $800,000 a year, spent $3 million on security. I didn't even know who she was. Why does she need security? And blew through a $5 million travel budget. Was set to testify before the committee today as they were hoping to get answers on, some of these allegations. But instead, they got this.
Everything is fine. Everything is fine. We're not taking foreign contributions. That's what Ms. Wallace-Jones said in November 2023, responding to a letter from the chairman.
When you signed this letter to me, did you believe that this letter was false and misleading?
On the advice of counsel.
It's pretty interesting. So now you're following the advice of your legal counsel, but you didn't when they warned you that your letter to me was false and misleading.
Pled the fifth. Dozens of times. That's what your donations are going to. But this was no surprise to the committee. She released an op-ed with the Washington Post at 6 o'clock this morning titled, "Why I Will Use the Fifth Amendment Rights Before Congress Today," saying invoking the Fifth Amendment is not an admission or even an insinuation of guilt. It's not a retreat. It's the only reasonable response to a proceeding that from the beginning has been about harassing a political opponent's fundraising platform, not genuine oversight. Now it has become something far more dangerous, she said. Pleading the fifth might not be a legal admission of guilt, but in the court of public opinion, it certainly doesn't say innocence. This is a woman that is the figurehead. She's like, I don't know, is she a front for what's going on behind the scenes? Maybe, I don't know. Refusing to answer questions on whether ActBlue funneled money to Democrats from overseas donors? Well, the man leading that hearing today, Wisconsin Congressman, Chairman of the House Administration Committee, Bryan Steil. Sir, look, I've been on this for 2 years. We just played the clip. Can we get some answers from these people, or are they just going to stonewall you all the way?
Well, it's pretty disappointing today when the CEO of ActBlue continued to plead the fifth and refused to answer the questions on the record. I thought this might be the opportunity where we would actually hear from her directly. That was obviously not the case, but our questions remain. We know that ActBlue had weak fraud prevention standards. And in fact, I'm incredibly concerned that in response to my 2023 letter, she intentionally misled or lied to Congress in that response. We know that individuals have utilized the ActBlue platform to launder money from foreign nationals to campaigns here in the United States. We should all be able to agree on the principle that U.S. elections are for U.S. persons only, and our oversight over ActBlue is only going to continue following her refusal to answer those questions today.
Yeah, well, let's see if we can get something out of this, too. But you interviewed 5 other ActBlue employees before this hearing today on foreign donors. This is what you got. Roll it.
We have additional evidence of ActBlue detecting at least 22 significant fraud campaigns. 9 of those fraud campaigns had a foreign nexus. After receiving this information, we deposed and interviewed 5 former ActBlue employees. When deposed, ActBlue employees refused to answer a single question.
So do we elevate this to criminal referrals at this point, sir?
Well, we are going to continue in our investigation. We have requested interviews now with the board members of ActBlue. We need to get to the bottom of this. We want to know exactly what was taking place. We know that foreign money was moving through ActBlue into Democratic campaigns. We know that ActBlue weakened their fraud prevention standards leading into the 2024 election. We know that there was a culture of allowing donations to move through that should not have. We are going to use all the tools in our toolkit to get the answer for the American people.
Sir, if you have these things, why not turn it over to the Justice Department today and let them at least start going after what you know already?
Well, we believe the Justice Department is engaged in their inquiry as well. We have an oversight and legislative role. The Department of Justice has an ability to move forward with criminal charges. Our investigation is going to be continuing to show light in this regard. What the DOJ does, we'll be watching what they do as well.
Yeah. All right. Well, Congressman Bryan Steil, we appreciate it very much, sir. Looking forward to hearing more.
Thank you.
All right, coming up, could tonight be the night after promising Iran will pay the price? President Trump says the U.S. is prepared to hit back. Is this another major showdown? Well, they might not have bridges tomorrow. Next.
Remember Joe Biden? He was totally lost, had no idea where he was. And the big media, they knew it, but they covered for him. We deserve the truth, all of us.
Watch Greg Kelly Reports, only on Newsmax.
For the love of your life, have your engagement ring custom made by the Jewelry Exchange. 1 carat certified lab diamonds, $4.99, or natural GIA for $15.90. 14K mounts are $4.99. Thousands of choices, always the best deal. The Jewelry Exchange Direct.
Hey, I'm Dr. Drupinski. I've been looking at the aging process for a long time. Fatty 15 actually slows it down. Fatty 15 comes out of Navy dolphin research. Without the C15, our cells become fragile and age and oxidize. This pushes that back. That's why I take Fatty 15.
The road to greatness is long, but greatness isn't just forged from within. It has to be proven on the greatest stage of all.
The hype is real! This is the moment we have all been waiting for.
Have you ever thought of getting a walk-in tub for you or someone you love? Now is a great time to take a look at getting a Safe Step walk-in tub.
With Safe Step's standard heated seat and new fast fill faucet, you can enjoy a nice warm bath up to 20% faster. And the convenient touchpad control is right at your fingertips.
Each tub comes standard with a dual hydrotherapy system. The 10 water jets can help increase mobility, relieve pain, boost energy, and improve sleep, while the MicroSoothe advanced air therapy system oxygenates and softens skin.
Safe Step walk-in tubs are built to maximize safety so you can stay in your home and enjoy the comforts of bathing again.
So call now for more information and a free no-obligation consultation.
When you call today, you'll also receive our limited time offer. Don't wait to enjoy safer bathing. Call 1-800-296-0431.
This is a paid advertisement for legal services. If you or a loved one has mesothelioma or any other asbestos-related cancer, call now. Asbestos manufacturers sold deadly asbestos materials to thousands of companies, putting workers at risk. An estimated $30 billion in court-ordered trusts have been set aside to pay out claims to asbestos victims. You may be entitled to a portion of these funds and receive compensation without filing a lawsuit or ever going to court. For your free legal consultation, call 1-800-306-1979. That's 1-800-306-1979.
Like a relentless weed, moderate to severe Crohn's disease symptoms can keep coming back. Break away to what's possible with Tremfya. Tremfya can help with remission at 12 weeks, 1 year, and 2 years. Some had visible repair of their intestinal lining. Serious allergic reactions, increased risk of infections or lower ability to fight them, and liver problems may occur. Before treatment, get checked for infections and TB. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, flu-like symptoms, or need a vaccine. Break away with Tremfya. Ask your doctor about Tremfya today.
This is why you don't hate the government enough. A public records request for the Braga Bridge lights contract in Massachusetts reveals some crazy expense estimates in the $16.8 million contract that was just approved by the Mass DOT, the Department of Transportation. For example, 400 traffic cones for management. Seems fine, but Mass DOT office estimated it would cost $25 per cone for a $10,000 total, but the contractor's bid was $3,500 per cone, $1.4 million total. The worst part, this was actually the cheapest bid from the contractors. And the way contract bids works is once all the bids are collected from the contractors, the DOT, especially if they've got federal funding for the project already, almost always must proceed with the lowest bid. So the majority blue Massachusetts will be taxed to pay for $3,500 per traffic cone. Newsmax contributor Chrissy Clark and comedian Tom Cotter. Tom, I would do it for half.
I have a home in Massachusetts, and this is why we pay so much in tax. And I actually, look at this. I'm sitting on a gold mine. These are easy to pick up on the side of the highway, and that's my retirement plan now. $3,500 a pop, I'm in.
Okay.
By the way, Cape Cod, ice cream cone on Cape Cod costs $500. So I don't know. You know, cones are just out of control in Massachusetts.
That's fair, and that don't even get me started on the the salmon-colored polos in Nantucket. So, Chrissy, this is actually to die for, dare I say. Starting August 5th, New York is going to allow terminally ill adults to, quote, obtain medication that they can, quote, self-administer to end their lives, basically Control-Alt-Delete themselves. And if you think it's anything better than the UK, the new report found that the emergency room waits in the UK are actually killing 300 people per week just due to the wait.
Yes. In my home country of Canada, we have tried this system and it has failed epically. In fact, it's the very social justice warriors out there that say they care so deeply for the homeless population and then simultaneously push this agenda of mass euthanasia. And a study from the Associated Press, I believe it was 2 years ago, found that the people who are indiscriminately being harmed by this program are homeless people. So congratulations, you care so much about the homeless people that you're going to kill all of them.
Yeah, that actually probably checks out with most government-run programs. All right, we may be doomed, Tom. Gen Zers, we're being told that they're arriving at college and they're unable to even read a sentence. Know how to read. They don't know how to read. One professor saying it's not even an inability to critically think, it's an inability to read sentences, Tom.
Yeah, I've been saying this for a while. We are raising an entire generation of kidiots in this country. Gen Z is appropriate. That's the marks they're going to get on their report cards. Yeah, instead of indoctrinating these kids and teaching them all about trans and the other stuff, how about reading, writing, and arithmetic? How about that? This is what you reap what you sow. And now these kids are going to become contributing members of society, allegedly, and they're going to be behind as they are in college. And, it's just not a good look for America right now.
Yeah, the first part of your sentence, keyword contributing, should be left off. Literally, my daughter.
Some of us are contributing, Carl.
Yeah,
Come on.
Some.
You can't do all of us.
Yeah, exactly. Look, I'm technically a millennial, but I'm not a Gen Zer. But my daughter's friend comes over the other day, and I had written something in cursive, and they were like, "What language is that, Chrissy?"
Stop, you're lying. I remember I
kid.
grew up in the time where you had to take the cursive test and they gave you like the cursive license. I don't know how it changed so dramatically. I'm 29. I am in Gen Z. It does baffle me, the difference in generation between even 5 years. My brother-in-law is 5 years younger than me. The difference in the way that AI molded his college experience versus COVID hadn't even hit when I graduated college. It is a very different experience. And I really thought that the insurgence of something, I know it's silly, but it's called book talk, and it's TikTok, but women are very obsessed with books. I really thought that the insurgency of book talk would save our generation, and alas, we can't read basic sentences.
Yeah, no, not at all. Tom, this is actually your boy over here, classic Democrat switch up, new Low T Tallarico. He used to believe there were 6 genders and supports trans kids and that God is non-binary, and that, he's realizing that probably ain't going to work in Texas. Watch this.
James, I hear consistent tropes about you being way too liberal for Texas, that you're pro-sex surgery for minors, and on and on and on. How do you respond to that?
Well, just on that particular accusation, I oppose gender reassignment surgeries for minors.
Huh.
That's the bar we've set. You're against mutilating children. Good. You're electable. Unbelievable. And
that's the bar.
The fact that he's a vegan living in Texas. How are you going to get elected? This guy. If he gets elected, I'll be shocked. He's just a dumpster fire. He's almost as bad as the guy in Maine, and it's close.
Yeah, it is close. But Chrissy, this is one of those things like he's just gay, and that's okay. But just say it. Just be okay with it.
My husband always says that there are no gay or there are no straight Democrats out there. It's just kind of gay.
Happy Pride Month. All right. Here's another gem the Democrats have picked as their fearless leader. The Michigan Democrat candidate Abdul El Sayed completely dodges CNN question on deleting his defund the police protest. Watch this real quick, Tom.
Why did you take those posts down?
Well, let me just speak to a vision for public safety that I think all of us can agree with. I think all of us want to be safe. We want to know that we can get home safely. We don't want to worry about being the victim of somebody's violence, whether it's from a neighbor or the state itself.
Tom, the state.
I don't know what's going on in our country. I live in New York City because I like the smell of urine. And we have Mondami, who is an idiot. This guy looks like a clone. He sounds like a clone. I don't know what we're doing with the Democratic Party with this Muslim communist kind of wave we're on right now. But it's disconcerting, at least.
You're worse than me. I have a house in Connecticut, and I work in Manhattan. You live in Manhattan and have a house in Massachusetts. Whoa, bro. I know, right? Chrissy, Tom, we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, coming up, it has begun. The U.S. Central Command has launched new attacks against multiple targets. It's confirmed in Iran. More next.
If you have wet AMD or DME, you never want to lose sight of the things you love. And your condition doesn't have to steal the moment. Long-lasting EYLEA HD delivers powerful vision improvements that can save your vision for the future. EYLEA HD is the first and only treatment for wet AMD and DME that gives you a chance for 5 months between injections after 1 year of successful response. Don't take EYLEA HD if you have an eye infection, eye pain, redness, or are allergic to it. Eye injections like EYLEA HD may cause eye infection, separation of the retina, rare but severe swelling of blood vessels in the eye, or increased eye pressure. There is an uncommon risk of heart attack or stroke. There's still so much to see. Ask about next generation EYLEA HD, a treatment retina specialists trust.
What if you're sick at home or traveling and can't get medical help or prescriptions? Doctors say a medical emergency kit is the answer. Joining me is Dr. Drew.
Thank you. And yes, these kits put you in charge of your health. They come with physician-prescribed medication to treat multiple common and some serious issues as well.
What are some examples?
Sure. Generic Z-Pak, amoxicillin, other essential antibiotics and antivirals that treat flu, pneumonia, strep, ear infections, sinus infections, urinary tract infections, and more.
So it is like urgent care and a pharmacy at home?
Exactly. No waiting, no pharmacy, no copays. You feel better faster and avoid serious complications.
How do you know what medicines to take?
You just match your symptoms to the doctor-written guide or schedule a quick telehealth call.
Sound advice. Order online in minutes at the website below and save $45. Thank you, doctor.
Visit urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code news.
Every day, bumps and bangs happen. Bruises are optional. Use daily dermatologist recommended Dermend and reduce the appearance of bruises. Get Dermend Moisturizing Bruise Cream in the first aid aisle.
The wait is finally over. Christian Pulisic and the U.S. kick off their World Cup dream on a huge night in L.A. Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern on Fox.
Stop. Check this out. Our most advanced performance frame, Talon, is out. It's a bestseller. We just got it back in stock, and I want to show you a little bit about it. These come with our signature lost and broken protection, and you can try them risk-free for 30 days. Check them out at ShadyRays.com.
Sir, he's here to see you.
So, are you ready to join forces? PCMag provides complete protection for your computer and smartphone against malware and ransomware, and it's 100% American-made and supported security.
Today, Cyberman and his unknown partner delivered a massive victory, protecting homes, businesses, and federal devices from ransomware.
Get protected now at PCmatic.com.
Oh, it is on. More breaking news. The U.S.-Iranian strikes tonight. The New York Times reporting that Iranian state media said that several explosions hit southern port city of Bandar Abbas near the airport, and it's an airbase down there. U.S. officials say all the targets were attacked in the southern Iran area and include air defense systems, radars, and drone command and control units. No word about infrastructure yet, but I believe that may be coming. The U.S. launched these strikes on Iran This is the second day in a row, okay? Axios is reporting that U.S. officials expect Iranian response possibly targeting U.S. bases, but let's see what they even have to target those bases with. Colonel Tony Shaffer, sir, we got the taco from all the libs. Trump chicken's out again, and not this time. He's had it. He's like, you're going to come to the table.
Yeah, so what he's been doing, Carl, is giving them every opportunity to take the deal.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he actually held the Israelis back from doing a series of attacks, which I think now he's probably going to say, go ahead and do. And the idea was like, yeah, we can hit you over the head, and we can do it very well, but we really do want to give you a shot here. And they just didn't take the shot. So we're going to start going after a number of these targets along the coast. Plus, I think we're going to hit the IRGC really hard within the interior, in addition to the port hits.
Yeah, well, the other thing too is while this ceasefire has been going on, he's been getting millions and millions and millions of barrels of oil out of the through the Strait of Hormuz, out of that area, and basically has, I don't want to say steal because that's not the word, because we could do what we want because we have 11 aircraft carriers, but he's gotten all their stuff away, so they have no revenue. We have more oil.
We need to continue to seize all of their tankers, Carl, and cash in. The other thing that we need to think about doing, and I'm not a boots on the ground kind of guy, but I think it's time we start looking at Karg Island and then taking some of the terrain right next to the Strait of Hormuz, just to seal the deal, to make sure they understand you can't do anything. Mm-hmm. I think that may be what we're contemplating next.
When do we hit the infrastructure, Tony? That's got to be on the table.
The infrastructure is going to be key to preserve certain pieces. I think we want to hit the power plants, the distribution stations, because we don't want to take down things we have to rebuild. So you're going to be able to take down entire power grids. You're going to be able to take down entire refineries by hitting one spot. We've done this with ships. You're in SEAL. We take out the engine room. The ship is useless. We got to do a similar thing with infrastructure. We need to be very precise. I think it's coming within this week if the Iranians don't figure out that they've got to do something to comply.
The other thing is, Iran up to this point has said, yeah, we'll negotiate and all this stuff, but we're not giving up our nuclear dust. Trump has said, you're giving up your nuclear dust. At some point, that's like the impasse. These people are radical zealots. They're taking this nuclear dust to the grave with them, literally. What does it take, and how far do we have to go, or do we just have to wipe them off the face of the earth?
President Trump said they will eventually be so exhausted we could just go in and take it. And I think that's where it's going. The other thing they've demanded, Carl, is $34 billion. We want money because that's good faith. Yeah, you're not getting the money, because that would be an Obama move. We're not going to do that. So they are desperate because they have no economy. The very army, Carl, they're counting on defending the country, hasn't been paid in over a month. So they don't have much longer left to do anything at all.
You think this is a one-night limited thing, or you think we're going to see this for a couple more days?
No, I think we're going to see it probably through the weekend. I think we're probably going to see a repeated strike and expanded tomorrow. To your point, I think we're going to continue infrastructure targets this weekend if the Iranians don't come back to the table in good faith and say something like, we really do want to cooperate.
Yeah, and then actually just hand over the dust, and then we can talk about the rest. Otherwise, Lake America. Tony Shaffer, pleasure as always, sir.
Well, sir.
All right, coming up, the rush to defend a convicted murderer. Karmelo Anthony is in full swing by the mob, and some writing off the killing of Austin Metcalf as, it was just a mistake. My thoughts on this next.
Ever wished you could brew your own beer, but figured it was too complicated, too messy, too much effort? Well, now you can. Meet Pinter, the home beer system everyone's talking about. Fresh beer, brewed and tapped by you. No fuss, no guesswork, just brew, chill, tap, done. You can craft 12 pints with every brew. Crisp lager, juicy and hoppy IPAs, smooth stouts, plus brew beers from top craft breweries you know and love. From the first tap to the last toast, hosting just got an upgrade. Nothing beats sharing your own fresh beer with friends. You don't need a garage brewery. You don't need a chemistry set. You just need a Pinter. Right now, get your Pinter free when you join our flexible beer plan. Choose your beers, brew fresh at home, and tap into the world's best beer experience. Free Pinter. Freshly brewed beer. Zero fuss. Go to pinter.com/spring to claim your offer today.
Little by little, age-related macular degeneration tries to take away your vision. You're not the type to sit back and do nothing, so now's the time to take action and make a plan with your doctor that includes PreserVision. It contains the clinically proven formula recommended by the NEI to help reduce the risk of moderate to advanced AMD progression. PreserVision is backed by over 20 years of clinical studies, and it's right here in the palm of your hand.
You spent a lifetime becoming who you are. Don't let AMD take that away.
It's your vision. Take action. Choose PreserVision.
This is a story about the one. The one who looks to Grainger to make sparks fly. Getting it done right is a craft. It takes experience, the right material, and the right partner like Grainger, with a wide range of professional-grade products. For the one, working hard means others can play even harder. Call, click Grainger.com, or stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
This is a bottlenose dolphin, and this is the breakthrough nutrient doctors discovered that helped some dolphins age healthier than others. It's called C15, and the more they had in their diet, the healthier they aged. Now, over 100 peer-reviewed studies later, Fatty 15 is bringing this discovery out of the ocean into everyday life to give your cells the same age-related benefits as all those happy, healthy dolphins. Fatty 15, healthy aging for all.
Dad is a legend. Who can we thank for that? Let Ancestry help you piece together your story with a family history membership and detailed DNA results. Save now at Ancestry.
Stop trusting foreign antivirus to defeat foreign-made ransomware. American-made PCmatic protects your family, your home, and your workplace. Go to PCmatic.com. Built by Americans to protect America.
I gotta say, the fallout from this Karmelo Anthony guilty verdict and then the 35-year prison sentence, full swing by the mob. About an hour ago, he appealed his almost 4-decade sentence, and I just have to point out the absolute ignorance that is being spewed is an indictment on our own society. Donation. People are donating they're pouring in. I mean, this is like the same thing as the insurance guy, you know, when he shot the insurance CEO in the back. This is Mangione. This is like they're pouring money into his legal defense fund, even after his conviction, despite the fact that they've already purchased the family a new car and are renting a nearly $1 million home in a gated community instead of hiring a first-rate lawyer in the first time. Give, Send, Go thankfully pulled their fundraising page today. As I mentioned yesterday, this case wasn't about race until the race baiters made it about race. This case was about Karmelo Anthony, who was asked to leave a tent multiple times at a school track meet that he didn't belong in. He refused to do so. Austin Metcalf tried to move him, and at which point Anthony escalated the situation and stabbed Metcalf in the chest and killed him. That's it. That's what this case was about. And the jury, after hearing days of evidence, came back to a guilty verdict in like under 3 hours. But now you have clowns like soon-to-be former Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. The fallout from these people is she's a former public defender. She was a defense attorney, downplaying the suffering of the murdered boy Metcalf and his family.
Black women, especially Black women who have Black male children, live in fear and agony every single day. A fear and agony that I promise you, the Metcalfs probably never spent a day living that way.
Shut up. Karmelo Anthony's mom experiences agony that the Metcalfs don't understand because she's Black. Really? Anthony's still alive, albeit in jail, but the Metcalfs lost their son because their Black son killed him. But if you think Crockett couldn't stoop any lower, hold my beer. The former public defender doesn't think the knife that killed Metcalf should be considered a deadly weapon.
Was it a switch? I don't know what he had. It was like it seemed like it was a multi-tool, almost like a Swiss Army.
Like with like with the little scissors and everything and whatever. So it was small. Well, I would argue the size of it alone, you wouldn't even think it's a deadly weapon.
Yeah. A pressure cooker isn't a deadly weapon either until you stuff it full of gunpowder and nails. A car's not a deadly weapon either until you drive it into a crowd of people. Crockett cannot accept the fact that Anthony is guilty, even suggesting that you know, she would react the same way if she was confronted by Metcalf.
I'm not limited to fist, because I'm telling you right now, if you are twice my weight and got way more strength than me, and you got me pinned down, I don't believe I'm going to survive. And when you look at even like George Floyd died and they never took out a quote unquote weapon, right? So this idea that you can't die is wild, right?
George Floyd died of a fentanyl overdose. That was the weapon. I mean, first of all, she can't even get that through her head. But regarding the Metcalf murder, her facts are also so wrong. Anthony was not pinned down by Metcalf, but because she's blinded by these racial allegiances, she cannot see it any other way. It's like ingrained in her DNA, which is weird because she went to like an upscale private school. Look at this woman. After the verdict announced that she's actually said this in an interview. What do I tell my 5 boys? What do we do now? That's what she said. I got an idea. Tell them not to murder anyone, and then they're fine. Like Chris Rock did a skit on this. It is absolutely hilarious. This is what a person wrote on Twitter also. Black kids are only kids who can't afford to make mistakes without dire consequences. I'm sorry, plunging a knife into someone's chest is not making a mistake, which they actively brought onto school grounds that they're not allowed to have it on. I mean, one could argue that this was premeditated even. And then there's this gem. She says that the guilt verdict is an exact representation of black boys never being afforded the luxury to make a mistake, as it is clearly in today's society they are not afforded the same empathy that many Caucasian male. This is actually the second fight he's had on school grounds, Karmelo Anthony, that we know about, by the way, where no legal action was taken. I would call that the luxury of making a mistake. And if you want to say that white people only defend white people, here on this program last month, we showed you this video from Texas of a man shooting and killing another man trying to steal his car with his family in it. Notice the color of the man who shot the other guy. Yeah, he's black. He killed Jose Ramirez, who was stealing his car. There was no outrage in the media, but in fact, we praised that black man for defending his family. That is self-defense. So no, Karmelo Anthony, that case is not about race or lack of empathy to me. It's about, to anybody it's not. It's about murder. It's about murder. I couldn't have put it any better than Jordan Wells, which is a black pastor who responded to the claims that this verdict was a legal lynching. He said, while we've lost our minds, a jury convicted Karmelo Anthony of murders and for stabbing 17-year-old Austin Metcalf to death. Evidence was presented. Witnesses testified. Self-defense was rejected. He got 35 years. That's not legal lynching. That's justice. Because the system worked. I just hope that these people start paying attention. Before we go, shocker, a useless department in socialist Ma'am Danny's government is taking more of your tax money. Okay, maybe not much of a shock, but next.
The press won't report the real story.
The American people are actually very smart.
Ridiculous statements.
These guys are just plain weird.
Actual scandals.
Even the immunity decision. I mean, that decision was so misreported.
That's my job, and I aim to do it every night.
Every day across the globe, big business agendas go unseen by investors. Things that go against your core values and beliefs. It's time to know your investments. Abortion, alternative lifestyles, gender and identity confusion. If you believe in protecting marriage and life, children, innocence, guarding masculinity, restoring families, defending religious liberty, invest with your values. Before investing, carefully consider the fund's investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses of the investment company. This and other important information can be found in the fund's prospectus. To obtain a copy, visit timothyplan.com or call 800-846-7526. Read each prospectus carefully before investing. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
Doctors say having a medical emergency kit is like having an urgent care and pharmacy at home. Let me bring in Dr. McCullough to explain more.
Most people know when they're getting sick, but waiting to see a doctor is often too late.
So the key is having medicines before you need them.
Yes, and it includes doctor-prescribed medicines to treat common and serious issues like generic Z-Pak, amoxicillin, antibiotics, antivirals for flu, pneumonia, strep, ear and sinus infections, UTIs, and more.
So it is like having an urgent care at home.
Exactly. No waiting, no pharmacy, no copays. You feel better faster and avoid serious complications and hospitalizations.
How do you know what to take?
Just match your symptoms to the doctor-written guide or schedule a quick telehealth call.
Great advice. I understand ordering is fast online, and we've put the website and $45 off code on the screen. Thank you, doctor.
Visit urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code news.
We can all agree, steak is for dads. All types of dads. Grill dads, cast iron dads, charcoal dads, tongue snapping dads. United by their love of steak. Whatever kind of dad he is, the perfect gift is waiting at Omaha Steaks. His gift could even include 8 free burgers made from premium-aged American beef. Find out how at omahasteaks.com. Here's to all the dads. They've earned this.
I lost 110 pounds. You couldn't tell at all because of my excess skin. So Novella changed that.
Introducing the new Lift EX, the just one visit, total body transformation.
I decided to give Sonobello a try. You can see my waist.
Lift EX is our breakthrough 360-degree body lift alternative that sculpts, tightens, and lifts your stomach, waist, thighs, and backside. And Lift EX is exclusively available at Sonobello. Easy monthly plans make your best body more affordable than ever. Call to book your free consultation today.
Life with ear ringing sounded like a constant train whistle I couldn't escape. Then I started taking lipoflavonoid. With 60 years of clinical experience, it's the #1 doctor-recommended brand for ear ringing. And now I'm finally free. Take back control with lipoflavonoid.
From senior to childcare to pets and more, the new Care.com makes it easier than ever to find the care you need. And you don't have to hire just anyone. You can find a background-checked caregiver who's the right fit for you. Join now and find care at Care.com.
You didn't think or believe us when we told you that these psycho-socialist commies were robbing you and wasting your tax money. Check this out. Ma'am Danny is using your hard-earned paychecks to fund his propaganda mouthpieces within the Office of Mass Engagement, which is basically a government funding for his policy messaging. It's an arm of his campaign, essentially. The Office of Mass Engagement, OME, was created in January of 2026 by executive order with initial disclosure budget of around $5.2 million for 14 staffers. Guess what? They just disclosed how much the budget for this propaganda machine actually was. For 2027 will be a total of $53 million. And guess where that money is coming from? Oh, you guys, not the billionaires that are leaving, but let me remind you that this program's original budget was $5 million. Now, even more of your hard-earned dollars will be going to political echo chambers that their words will help sustain momentum around the issues that matter most to New Yorkers. That's their words, not mine. More socialist stuff. Universal health care and free stuff and buses and city-owned grocery stores and all the things that, Rob Schmidt goes to.
Oh, yeah, I love that stuff. There's nothing more important for socialists, for communists, for collectivists than propaganda. Because what they're trying to put on society, what they're trying to inflict on society is so broadly unpopular. They have to control the narrative. They have to do this.
It's a fancy way of saying stupid.
Yeah, stupid, exactly. Their idiocy has to be concealed. Carl, good to see you.
My man.
Information. Truth. Is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.